All right, World History 2 students, these are your notes on the Cold War, starting with the rise of Joseph Stalin, and then looking at some differences between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. So we're going to take some brief notes. You're going to stop this video, you're going to use your textbook to look up some terms, and then we will come back to the video to finish the notes. Alright, so let's talk about the Cold War. Here's the big thing with the Cold War, and this should be a review, right? The Cold War's causes date back to the worldwide depression of the 1930s that had provided opportunities for the rise of totalitarian dictators in Europe, including in the Soviet Union. So you'll remember Lenin, here's Lenin, and here's Joseph Stalin from our discussion of the Russian Revolution and overthrowing the Romanov family. Rachmaninoff is a Russian composer whose name just happens to be similar. And then Stalin, who was a member of the Allied group of countries during the World War II. And then he ended up going on to be a pretty terrible totalitarian leader. Well, really good at being a totalitarian leader, but like a pretty terrible human being. So, Stalin. Let's talk about Stalin's practices and policies during the interwar period. He entrenched communism. Entrenchment is when something's hard to get rid of. You get stuck in it, you can't get out of it, and the Soviet Union became entrenched in communism. It was such a strong force they couldn't get out of it. He had his 5-year plans for production of different resources. He collectivized farming, so people farmed, contributed their outcomes to the greater group, right? Everybody owned part of the farms. He industrialized the state. He also instituted a secret police force to make sure that people were not breaking the rules of communism. And he used the Great Purge to get rid of his enemies. Particularly anybody who, spoke out against him, spoke out against communism, got rid of them from the military, got rid of them from the country, got rid of them. You may watch the video on Joseph Stalin using the link below in the video description if you like when you're done watching this video, or you can pause now and do that and then come back to this. Okay, so you've got some vocabulary words. There's a set of vocab words at the end of this page, and then when you turn the page, there is a different set of vocabulary terms. So you need to use these 2 pages, find the terms that are on here, and write in the definitions. These page numbers are on your handout, so you can pause this and turn to that. You should write down the definition of deterrence, which is right here for you. It is not easily locatable in your textbook, so please do that one while you have this video up. Then get your textbook to do the others. Come back to this video when you're finished. Okay, so you've filled out the note chart with the squares at the top for some more definitions, and below we have some information about the 2 sides of the Cold War. So the United States and the USSR, the Soviet Union, both had strong ideological beliefs that they wanted to see followed. For the USA, that meant democracy, capitalism, and individual freedoms. For the Soviet Union, that meant totalitarianism, communism, and limited individual freedoms. Right? These are our strong beliefs. These are the strong beliefs of the Soviet Union. Us and the Soviet Union. So the Cold War begins sometime after the Yalta Conference. Okay, this brings us to the beginning of the Cold War. At the end of World War II, the United States, the Soviet Union, and Great Britain meet at a conference called the Yalta Conference to discuss the future of Europe. And they decide that Germany is going to be divided into 4 sections in order to do rebuilding efforts. So here is the division of the country of Germany, right? We have the British are in charge, The French are in charge of some of it, and the U.S. is in charge of some. Then we have the Soviet part over here. Here's Berlin. Berlin is divided up with a wall down the middle. We have the French, British, and U.S. sections of the city, and then the Russian section. So here we have Berlin, right? Here are our three Western powers. Here's the Soviet Union with the Berlin Wall down the center. So they decided that they would let the Soviet Union rebuild Eastern Europe at the Yalta Conference. However, the Soviets had no intention of rebuilding individual Eastern European nations. They planned to rebuild Eastern Europe to keep it as part of the Soviet Union. So Berlin was the capital of Germany, and as well as the country being divided up, the city of Berlin itself was divided up into two parts, into East Berlin, which was the communist side, and West Berlin, which was the democratic side. Because the Soviets didn't want to have Western influence on East Berlin, they constructed a wall around West Berlin to keep them separate from the rest of the city and the surrounding area. So here are some pictures of the wall as it was being built. Here we can see the wall with the barbed wire fence on top. As soon as they decided to put this wall up, they put up fencing. There were stories of people guarding the wall and guarding the construction of it who would defect to the other side, would run away to the other side to get out of East Berlin right before the wall was finished. There were stories of people trying to jump from apartment buildings that were located right along the wall from the eastern side to the western side. And all along the wall that separated the eastern and western parts of Germany, there were fences, there were border checks, there were landmines to stop people from moving back and forth. This is what the western side of the wall looked like at the end of the Cold War. So by the end of the 1980s, when this wall came down, the western side was completely covered with graffiti. Okay, so these are your notes on the Cold War. You have the rest of the period, now that you've completed your e-cart and you've completed these notes, to go ahead and work on your SOL review packet. Those quizzes will start happening before you know it. You will get a grade for the completion or lack of completion by the quiz date of each of those sections of the review. So take some time now. You should have a good amount of time in class today to get some of that taken care of. Thank you for your good work while I'm not there with you, and have a good day.